Ah, that feels so much better. Uncle Tetsuo came back. As soon as the last story finished, he rushed off to the toilet. While he was gone, everyone decided he was next. He looked incredibly happy that he was up next. Uncle Tetsuo was a bit of a strange guy who called himself an adventurer. But to me, he just looked like a good-for-nothing bum. No doubt everyone in the room thought the same. And despite still being March, Uncle Tetsuo was wearing a tank top. I wondered if all adventurers were like that. Well then, let's begin. So, this area is pretty countryside, huh? Don't you think, Yoko-chan? The story I'm about to tell you is something I experienced when I visited a rural area just like this. Yoko-chan, how do you feel about the countryside? The countryside is great, right? It's all a big stage for adventure. Ever since I was a kid, I've always loved running around in nature. Yoko-chan, you've done the same too, right? Yes. Right. It doesn't matter who you are. Kids just love running around in nature. I was one of those kids and I especially loved exploring forests. The small forest behind our house was like an unexplored jungle to a kid like me. If you find a good location in a place like that, then you've got to build a hideout there. Your own secret house. And I hid my treasures and such there. Normally, kids would share a hideout like that. But I was different. It didn't matter how close we were. I didn't tell anyone about it. It was my real secret hideout. And generally, most men like to work alone. We're lone wolves, right, Yoshio-kun? I like playing with my friends. I mean, that's more fun. Uncle Tetsuo, do you not have any friends? Uncle Tetsuo's fist started shaking. Bullseye. That takes me back. My hideout in the forest. That was where Yamazaki Tetsuo the adventurer all began. Actually, I just recently visited the forest for the first time in a while, and that's what this story is about. I often hang out with 3 friends, and we visited this really rural town. As for why we adventurers went there, Yoko-chan, what do you think? A group recreational trip. Eh? A group recreational trip? Yoko-chan, you're funny, but no, that wasn't it. Most adventurers would do no such thing. Adventure! It's adventure! Men like us, we travel the world looking for adventure and romance. Adventure itself could even be called a trip. To tell you the truth, I heard there was a forest there that not even the locals would enter. This forest was at the foot of a mountain with a steep cliff. It was the perfect cliff for rock climbing. And when I heard that, I had to go there. So I got the guys together and off we went. We arrived that evening. It was a small town, just like we'd heard, and pretty damn countryside. We visited the inn we had booked and planned what we would do the following day. Then, a man came to our room calling himself Kazuma, the owner of the inn. Welcome! How was the food? Was it good? The owner was a young man around our age and seemed quite pleasant. By the way, what are you doing tomorrow? Do you have any plans? He asked us. We told him we planned to climb that cliff I mentioned in the forest. Then the man calling himself Kazama jumped in surprise. He greatly opposed that idea. Wait! I won't say anything bad, but that place alone you must avoid. It's dangerous. That's why not even the locals will go near there. You simply must stay away, he said. We just laughed. We figured we'd be okay. Not to boast, but we had been on various adventures all around the place, you know. I mean, we'd been to a tropical jungle that was 10 times, no, 100 times bigger than that forest. The forest in this town was nothing compared to that, and we told Kazama this. Then he let out a big sigh and continued. You don't understand anything. Do you think I'm telling you it's dangerous because you might get lost? Something unfathomable lives in there, and that's why it's dangerous. Yoko-chan, what do you think he said lived in there? A tanuki. Eh? How did you know? Unbelievable! There's no way you just got that. Yoko-chan, are you one of those, what do they call them? Psychos, was it? Yeah. Yasuaki, should we put her on TV or something? Shocking! A genius psycho girl appears. Reads the truth with psychokinesis. What on earth is up with Uncle Tetsuo? Who is he calling a psycho girl? If I appeared on TV with a name like that, I'd never be able to show my face again. Anyway, back to the story. Kazama then said to us, a tanuki lives in that forest. You laugh, but this is no normal tanuki. This tanuki possesses unfathomable powers. Nobody in this town will go near there, and yet you insist on going? Yes, we answered without hesitation. Then Kazama the owner left, saying, well, whatever happens to you isn't my problem. But we still didn't believe him at all. We all laughed and said if such a creature existed, then we'd capture it and put it on display for all to see. But honestly, at the time, I had a bad feeling about it. The next morning, we set out once we were ready without even eating breakfast. The weather was great, and it was a fine morning. That forest was about an hour's walk away. There was no public transport or anything, so we walked there. After walking for a while, a dark, creepy forest spread out before our eyes, and it felt damp and dark in there. Several pitch-black crows flew in circles above the trees, and the place creeped me out. In contrast to the blue sky above, the entrance to the forest was like a big gaping black hole. Everyone stopped and stared at it, as though they sensed how creepy it was too. But then we readied ourselves and went in. And inside it was just as creepy as it seemed on the outside. It was dim and creepy, and when you looked up, the trees were thick and dense. Yeah, it wouldn't be all that weird for a strange tanuki to live here, I thought. On that note, Yoko-chan, you've heard the saying, slow and steady wins the race, right? Is that how you do things? That's right. I see. Well, that does seem like something you'd do. No, the reason I'm asking is because we soon came upon a river cutting across our path. Once we crossed that, we just had to go straight to reach the cliff. We could also follow the river to go around it, but that would take us the long way around. Yoko-chan, you'd probably go around it, but we decided to cross it. That was obviously the shortest way. It was a small, shallow river, so it wouldn't be a problem. I almost slipped on the way over, but we all got there safely. Then we were back in the forest, and it was still dark, damp, and uncomfortable. As we walked, something felt strange, almost like we weren't the only ones there. But there was no way. After all, nobody ever went near there. We ignored it and kept walking. Things were fine for a while, but it really did seem like someone else was there. As we were talking about how strange it seemed, finally, the stranger made themselves known. And who do you think was there? It was Kazuma. We were shocked. We had no idea he would be there. He stared at us with a blank look on his face. He told us not to enter the forest, and yet he himself was there. It must have been awkward for him to run into us like that. Hey, Kazuma-san, fancy running into you out here, huh? We said sarcastically to him. But then, trembling, he said, backing away, The Tanuki spoke! We had no idea what he was talking about. And so I asked him what he was doing there. He looked at me with an unbelievable look on his face. It seemed this Tanuki had him all messed up. I tried to approach him, but then he screamed. "Uah! The Tanuki spoke!" Then he turned and ran off further into the forest. We all looked at each other like he seemed to be saying that we were the talking Tanuki. Then he sped off into the trees. Was he mad? Or did he see something that we didn't? Should we just ignore it and move on? Because no matter how you looked at it, it wasn't normal. Yoko-chan, what would you do? Would you chase after him? I would. Aren't you kind, Yoko-chan? As for me, of course, we chased him. It wasn't like he was a stranger, so we couldn't just ignore matters. We called out his name as we ran after him. But he just kept screaming pathetically as he ran away. Then he started screaming about how a Tanuki was chasing him. It appeared he thought we were the Tanuki. Then, when we almost caught up to Kazuma, several men holding guns appeared before him. "Help me! A talking Tanuki is chasing me!" Kazuma said to the men. Then, the men turned their guns on us. I'm not kidding. We didn't even have time to scream. We all panicked and hid behind the trees. We could hear the men looking for us. What's up with them? They've gone mad. we all went pale. I mean, I didn't want to die in a place like that. What would you do in a situation like that? Keep quiet and run away. That's right. We kept quiet and ran away. I mean, we didn't have any time to talk to each other anyway. But it was a disaster. "Ah! They're running away!" Kazuma screamed. The men all turned at once in our direction. Did they really think we were Tanukis? One of my friends screamed. Something wasn't right here. Every single one of them didn't seem to doubt we were Tanukis, but we were clearly human. The voices of the men chasing us came from all around. They were closing in on us, and one of my friends screamed about how they'd soon catch us even if we kept running. I thought the same. There was no way we'd escape. Yoko-chan, what would you do? Keep running. Ah, the same as my friends. They said the same. They clearly thought we were Tanuki, so it didn't matter what we might try to say to them. And so we decided to keep running. We finally reached that river we crossed earlier. Once we crossed that, it wasn't much further until we could leave the forest, and so we rushed to cross it. Stop! We turned around, and Kazuma was standing there. I came all this way to play with you guys, and you're gonna leave just like that. How mean, he said. And I said to him, how the hell were we being mean when he was the one running around calling us Tanuki? And then he said, because I thought if I said that, you'd follow me further into the forest. So, you were inviting us to... That's right. And because our human bait fled, now I'm in breach of contract. Breach of contract? Yes, I made a promise to those men chasing you, that they could hunt people. You were that prey. Can you believe it, Yoko-chan? Those guys would bring people into the forest and then hunt them with guns. Don't you think that's cruel, Yoko-chan? Just completely unforgivable. And so I said to him, did he really think he would be able to get away with that? But he replied, completely unfazed. People like doing things they're not allowed to do, and so they'll pay a lot of money to take part in a hunt like that. I couldn't believe this guy. The look on his face was like, as long as he was having fun, it didn't matter what anyone else thought. Yoko-chan, you feel the same way, right? He seemed fed up with us, and then suddenly said, well, whatever. This time, I'll let you go. I couldn't believe my ears. What are you saying? I asked. Then he said something terrifying, that there was a price on our heads. Whoever brought our heads to Kazuma would get a prize. And that prize was a ticket for 1 free year of human hunting. It was undoubtedly a juicy prize for those taking part in the game. But even more terrifying was that anyone could come for us. Like, even someone who didn't kill us but instead snatched the prize away. As long as you brought the head, you got the prize. Meaning, once someone killed us, then the hunt would be on amongst the hunters themselves. Only one hunter would survive. We got chills. Well, Yoko-chan, can you believe this Kazuma guy? He was treating people's lives like they were part of a game. He then took a whistle out of his pocket and blew it. Apparently, that was the sign that someone had gotten their prey, meaning the game was now on amongst the hunters themselves, and Kazuma told us to go home before running off. Kazuma scared me, so all I could do was as he said. After that, we heard gunshots going off in the forest for a while. I've no doubt several people died. On that note, I got a letter from Kazuma not too long ago. Apparently, he's going to hold another survival game soon. They're meeting in that forest, but I don't think it's just a game. I highly doubt it. Uncle Tetsuo looked serious, but he didn't fool me. I saw the twinkle in his eyes. There was no way he'd be able to ignore a game like that. Was he going to take part too? Well, Yoko-chan, that's the end of my story. Who's next? His voice was more lively than usual.